side, water on this side, and some type of other drinks on this other side. So enjoy it. Welcome to Uphams Corners. I am Juan Layton, the director of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative. I want to welcome today to today's event. This is a very important event today for all of us. It's a milestone that we are going to be talking about Imagine 2030 and what's coming after that. But before, I'd like to acknowledge a few partners. So you know, we have many partners who are working together, shoulder to shoulder, to plan, to implement every day in this community and make this community a better place for everybody. Among them, we have the Fairmount Cultural Corridor partners, Uphams Corners Main Street, Art Morpheus. We also have the Fairmount Innovation Lab and the Fairmount CDC Collaborative, Dorchester Bay EDC. I also wanted to thank a few foundations that have been helping all of us to make this work possible. That's the Boston Foundation and the Bar Foundation. But also I want to take this time to thank Mayor Walsh, Julie Burrows, Sheila Dillon, John Barros, who is not here today, because many of them have taken leadership to make today's event possible. We are very excited today as Boston reaches a major milestone in the process of Imagine Boston 2030. This process will shape the city for many years to come. But also I have to say, Boston is in a very unique place today. We have seen development as never before. We can say that the economy is thriving, yet we still face many challenges. In Rosebery and North Dorchester, for people to know, we shouldn't have an unemployment rate 3 times higher than the rest of the city. Or no child going to a school should be homeless, or nobody who has worked hard to decrease crime and beautify this community should be displaced because they cannot afford their rents anymore. Imagine Boston 2030 will be a new compass that will help us, all of us, to move forward and address these problems. I'm very confident that that will be the case. I know that our city leadership is working hard in partnership with communities to eliminate these issues that they will continue doing in the future. I have to say that one of the things that I most like in today's city's leadership is that we are working on solutions. And I want to mention that we have been working shoulder to shoulder today, like to make land available for our community. You are standing today in a community land trust if you didn't know. This is a community land trust today, and the community will decide the future of this community land trust. I want to say also, Mayor Walsh, thank you for picking this place to be the place where we announce the Imagine Boston 2030. And I want to say loud and clear that we have witnessed his commitment with our communities. His leadership has demonstrated that he's thinking on solutions. He probably doesn't remember, he came to the SNI back in the winter of 2016, where we had hundreds of residents talking about the future of Dudley. And he was listening to a resident one by one. And we were talking about all the different issues. And he demonstrated that because his leadership, Boston can look into a different future, and that's Boston 2030 for us. I welcome Mayor Walsh in Uphams Corners.
Thank you, Juan. I want to thank Juan and everyone at Dudley Street Initiative for their great work. And I know Juan mentioned earlier, John Barros couldn't be with us today. He's traveling home. But John was the director of Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative as well. And the plan that we're unveiling today has a lot of input from a lot of great people. And I want to thank Rebecca Emanuel, who's going to speak in a few minutes, Sheila Dillon, Chief of Housing, John Barrows, Chief of Economic Development, Senator Linda Josina Forey, our state senator. We know Linda, our senator, who grew up in this neighborhood. David Leonard, the president of our library. We have Brian Golden from the Boston Planning and Development Agency. We have Gina Fandaka from Transportation. We have Joe Finn from the fire department, the best trained fire department in the country. Ron Dorsey, Education. Dan Coe, Chief of Staff. I could go on and on and on about all the people that have input in this document, but also really with the community. This is a community-driven document, and I want to thank you for that. We have members of the Consul Generals from our international community here. Too many to name, but there's a few countries represented here. Why is it important to have the consuls here? Because we are an open and united city who invites everyone and welcomes everyone, just like Uphams Corner has for generations and decades. We've been talking a lot lately about how cities must lead. In a time of national tension and division, people are looking to cities for answers. Cities are the hubs of diversity. They are places of opportunity. And they're a place where we can actually help change people's lives by the policies we do and how we work together. Boston is at a unique point in history. Our population is growing in our city. We're expected to exceed 700,000 people, my notes say before 2030, but probably before 2020. We've been growing twice as fast as the rest of the nation. And we're more diverse now than we've ever been. We're the world's leading employers and innovators. They're flocking here. Boston, Massachusetts, 28% of our residents are foreign born. 48% of our residents are first generation like me. When you think about our city, over 75% of our city is either first generation or immigrant. So when people think about why they come to the city of Boston, they come here because of our diversity. They come because of our strength. They come because of our education. They come because of the people who we are here. And that's what we're going to continue to push forward. Today we're releasing the full image of Boston's plan, the first citywide master plan, true citywide master plan over 50 years. Imagine Boston 2030 builds on our strengths and shares them more widely. This plan is about lifting people up, embracing our diversity, and connecting people to good jobs. That's what this plan is about. It's about how do we do that? How do we move our city forward? We have a blueprint, finally, to be able to try and do that. We're not talking about it. We're laying it out how it's going to happen. It's about expanding opportunities in every single corner of our city and making sure that everyone benefits from the success. In Uphams Corner, you're seeing Imagine Boston in action. There's a clear vision here in this neighborhood, one with equity, equality, and anti-displacement at its core. So as we look and we see how the streets are changing, whether Virginia Street or Cushing Ave or Stoughton Street, or Hancock Street, we're making sure that we continue to move forward our streets in this neighborhood. In this community, we're investing in all the elements of a thriving neighborhood. We're investing in transportation. We're investing in affordable housing. We're investing in open space. We're investing in arts and culture and so much more. Those of you that live in this neighborhood know that this hub right here, this Uphams Corner was a gateway. It was a gateway to the west of the city of Boston. It was a gateway to the north of the city of Boston. Many people of different nationalities, when they first came to this country, would go through this intersection right here of Dudley, Columbia, and Stoughton. And that hasn't changed today. The faces might be different, but the immigrants are still here. And they're still going through that intersection because this still is an important gateway in our community. For example, right now we're standing next to the old Dorchester Trust building. Years ago, it was a booming building. It doesn't look like a lot right now, but someday soon, I'm happy to announce, this will be the site of the new Uphams Corner Library right here on Hancock Street, on Columbia Road. Now, I don't know if anyone from the neighborhood remembers where the library was before. It was at Bird Street, but it used to be down Columbia Road, in the old doctor's office downstairs. I think it was a doctor's office or a dentist's office. And they moved it out of there, and then they had one more stop, and then it's at Bird Street. What's going to be invested in this building next to us is $18 million of a brand new library coming to this neighborhood. It's going to create a community space, and it's going to create access to the latest technologies. I want to thank DSNI. I want to thank Bank of America for their support. Another example, a few steps from here, is the Strand Theater, a great asset to our city. Our cultural facilities study, which will be released tomorrow, will ask how to reimagine our historic gem like the Strand to ensure its viability. This can be the cornerstone of our first Arts Innovation District. With the Strands and a new library, we're going to leverage even more assets to attract community arts and organizations to this neighborhood. The work being done in the Uphams Corner invests heavily on the neighborhoods. It builds on what makes this community unique. That's the approach that we're taking citywide with our Imagine Boston plan. In a few minutes, you're going to hear more about how we're guiding economic growth to every neighborhood, protecting our waterfront, leading on climate change, and creating more housing for everyone who calls the city our home. When I was walking over here, a woman grabbed me. She lived on Tuttle Street when I was there years ago, and she was worried about affordable housing, as many of us in this community are. We're also worried about making sure, not just in this neighborhood, but other neighborhoods throughout the city of Boston, when you get a chance to review the plan, and you're going to see it's a comprehensive plan that touches almost every community, every neighborhood in our city. I know we're highlighting Uphams Corner today because we're here, because John Barris grew up down that way, and I grew up that way, and I kicked off my campaign next door at the Strand Theater. That's why we're here today. But we're also here today because this is a fabulous, great neighborhood. We had a bunch of different people involved in Imagine Boston 2030. Our first director was a woman named Sarah Meyerson, who came to us to run the report, and she started the conversation on the report. I don't know if Sarah's here today. Sarah, where's Sarah? And we also had an incredible young woman working in the office. Her name was Rebecca Emanuel, and she was working on some other aspects of other plans. And there was an opportunity for us. We were looking for a chief planner in the city of Boston, and we looked to Sarah and said, Sarah, we need you to become the head planner at the city to work with Brian Golden. The problem was Imagine Boston 2030 was a big plan for me as a city and for us as a city and a legacy. Who was the right person to lead this plan? And without hesitation, Rebecca Emanuel jumped to the top of the list. It was a conversation between Sarah, Dan Cole, and myself. And she has, give me 2 minutes, we'll talk in 2 minutes, all right? And she has not missed a beat. She has put an incredible plan together. She has worked extremely hard, her whole team. At the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, there was adults in one room talking about the future. There was kids putting stickies on the wall talking about what they want to see in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca Emanuel, the director of Imagine Boston 2030.
Thank you, Mayor Walsh. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here. This is a moment we've been looking forward to for a while. So we're going to start with a question here. Think back about 15 years. How many of you had a particular vision for the type of city you wanted to live in? Let's see a show of hands. I see some hands. And how many of you did that change? What you did, how you spent your time? Yeah, when you have a clear vision, that changes what you do. And here we are. We're looking forward. We're looking to 2030. What are the things that we envision now, and how is that going to change what we're doing? So let's take a moment and think back. Let's think of it. It's almost like a story. Think back several decades. A couple of decades ago, Boston didn't look like it looked like today. In fact, its population was declining. People were leaving. Jobs were leaving. And things for the city of Boston looked tricky. It wasn't totally clear what the future of the city was going to be. That was the last time we had a citywide plan. Well, today, let's look around. People are moving to Boston. Everyone wants to be here to start their new company or to move their new headquarters here. We've got more and more population growth, immigrants from around the world, from the U.S. and locally. And Mayor Walsh did something really impressive. He paused and he said, we've got to ask ourselves a question. What kind of city do we want to be? What are we going to do with that boom, that growth, that energy? And I want to tell you, Mayor Walsh's answer is clear. We are going to be an inclusive city. We're going to be a city where the benefits of growth are shared by all. And we're going to invest in the long term, right? It's very easy to see the things that happen over 2 years and 3 years. But in fact, what we want is we want a city that is growing and thriving for the long term. So we're making investments in development without displacement, in transportation, in affordable housing, in open spaces, and in making sure that we're climate prepared and are ready for whatever comes our way. So something important happened when Mayor Walsh asked this question. He didn't just ask the question. He turned to residents and said, what do you want to see for the city of Boston? Their priorities should determine what our city becomes. And I want to tell you, that's something remarkable. He didn't just turn to the people in City Hall or to the incredible academics and experts that we have in great numbers in Boston, although he definitely turned to them too. What he did is he turned to the people of the city of Boston, the people who get up in the morning, get their kids ready for school, walk or drive or take the T to work, and who think about the city and where they want it to be, and whose children's lives, right? Children like right here are tied up in the city. And our residents not only told us the priorities, the goals we were going for, but they also told us the steps they wanted to see to take it there. And, interestingly, they told us about the trade-offs that we need to make when the time for trade-off comes. And they looked at the draft. And they said, actually, the map should look a little bit more like this. And it changed because of what they said. So when you walk through this building and see the Imagine Boston Plan for 2030, what you should see and what you should hear, there's actual voices in the building, are 15,000 different voices that made this plan. And frankly, it was incredibly concrete. A Roslindale resident told us, here, I've got the quotes, I'm going to read it to you. Direct housing density close to public transit and near walkable main streets. And that's what we're aiming to do. An East Boston resident told us that Suffolk Downs was full of great, underutilized land for mixed-use development that could blend with the existing East Boston neighborhood. And we're striving to do exactly that. A Dorchester resident told us to improve the arts district we have, starting with, let me hear it, Uphams Corner. And we're as excited about investing in the Strand and the art resources as I hope she is. So Imagine Boston sets the framework to achieve our goals by enhancing our existing neighborhoods, by making our commercial core more residential, more walkable, better able to host more people who want to work and gather there, by expanding our neighborhoods to provide a release valve on existing neighborhoods, and by investing comprehensively to address inequality in our city, combining education, connections to jobs, transportation, and creating a waterfront for future generations when it's climate resilient. So I know some of you are sitting here and saying, that's great. So I think I have a little bit of a sense of what the plan is about, but when's it going to happen? When am I going to see it right here in Uphams Corner? When am I going to see it on the waterfront? And frankly, you should know the answer, right? Imagine Boston 2030. But a lot of things are beginning right now. They're happening right now in Sullivan Square with Rutherford Ave, combining increased traffic circulation with climate preparedness. They're happening in Walcott Square, in Reedville, to make sure that the sort of circulation that's at the basis of all the future of planning is possible. And they're happening on our waterfront when we think about how we're going to be prepared in the future, how we create green spaces and a waterfront for all. We're thinking about that in Charlestown and in East Boston. And I know a couple of you also have the question, how is it being funded? One of the wonderful things is that the Imagine Boston plan comes out with a capital plan as well. And we're excited that we're already talking about how we're making all of this happen. So, in order to achieve everything in Imagine Boston, I have one ask of you. If you have a particular dream in mind, a thing you want to see happen, we want your partnership. We want to do this with you. We're going to turn to you and ask you, hey, this is what we're starting. Please help us make this happen. And in particular, one of the things that I know a lot of you care a lot about is affordable housing, development without displacement. We already had some people talk about that. And so about that, I'm going to introduce Sheila Dillon, who will tell us more about that component of the plan.
Thank you, Rebecca. First, I just want to thank the mayor and the very small dedicated Imagine Boston staff, but most of all the communities of Boston that really gave us great direction. During this process, Boston made it very, very clear that developing housing to serve all of its residents and avoiding displacement were critical. They were one of the most critical components in Imagine Boston. And they were critical if we were really going to have the healthy, inclusive city that we all dream about. We know that Boston's population is growing. The mayor mentioned it. And we anticipate that this trend is going to continue. More and more businesses are coming to Boston, which is phenomenal. And residents that used to leave at certain points aren't leaving, they're staying. And all that's good. But it's only good if we're going to grow and we're going to meet those needs. So we know we need to increase our housing stock. And the Imagine Boston plan helps the city do this by identifying areas of the city that can accommodate this growth. Neighborhoods that can be expanded and new neighborhoods that can actually be formed and created. Areas of the city that are underutilized and by good transit. Imagine Boston is the roadmap, and that's why I'm so excited about Imagine Boston. It really is telling us where we should be doing great development. And the plan clearly states that we need to create more than just luxury housing. We need to use our collective resources to expand housing for our low and middle income households, families, and elders. We'll create more affordable housing by using inclusionary development, density bonuses, publicly owned land, and affordable housing resources, including recently passed CPA. But residents were very, very clear on one point. While we grow our way out of this problem, we need to be mindful that our existing residents are not displaced. The Fairmont Indigo Network, Boston Tenant Coalition, Project Hope, Four Corners, Project Right, DSNI, I was taking an inventory as I looked out. All these organizations weighed in and said, we have to be really mindful of displacement. It's one of our largest issues. So guarding against displacement was a key component of Imagine Boston. It's memorialized in the plan over and over and over again, which I find very exciting and very, very unique. And it calls us out to build more affordable housing, as I mentioned, preserve the affordable housing that we have, reduce evictions and create policies to assist and protect renters, increase home ownership throughout the city, and develop a regional housing approach. All of those things and more are called out in Imagine Boston, and those are items that we will get to work on immediately. So in closing, I'm really pleased to say that I'm excited that the mayor has put his weight behind this plan. The staff at City Hall, working with all of you, are really dedicated to its principles. And I'm very, very hopeful. I'm very confident that we're going to grow a Boston that we all can live and share in. So with that, I will close, but I want to now introduce Senator Linda Dorsina-Forey. She's no stranger to this neighborhood. In fact, Linda and I worked in this neighborhood many, many years ago. She grew up a few streets away, but she's really, she cares about the city at large, and she certainly cares about making sure that Boston is affordable for everyone. So with no further ado, Linda.
Thank you, Sheila. As I'm fighting this moth. Thank you, Sheila. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Uphams Corner. All right, it is so exciting, isn't it, to be here today. I want to thank our mayor, Mayor Marty Walsh, for having the vision to put forth Boston 2030. That did not happen by accident. When he became mayor for 50 years, we did not take a look at ourselves as a city to say, where do we want to be? What do we want to be as a city? And who do we want to represent as a city? So we want to thank our mayor. Thank you for your vision and your leadership for making this happen. Want to thank the agencies, all the city agencies that are here. Sheila Dillon, her team at D&D, so many people, John Barrows, who could not be here, who grew up just down the street, doing so much work together collaboratively to support all of you, the residents here in our great city. It is wonderful to be in Uphams Corner. I grew up in Uphams Corner. I went to school at St. Kevin's School. Strand Theater, we're right here under the theater. It is incredible that this investment is going to happen. A public library, a new library, right? Although we have it up the street, downstairs, you know the library, right? The children's library is downstairs, these staircases, the swirling staircases that you have to get to downstairs to participate. So this is going to be quite incredible in terms of the vision that is happening right here in Uphams Corner. I'll say today's announcement celebrates the hard work that has been happening in every Boston neighborhood since 2015 and before that. But over 14,000 of our residents participated in this landmark study. That is no small feat, and will have a direct hand in the shaping of the future of our great city. And that's what it's about today. So I thank you all for being part of this important process. Very important. And to have the mayor and his team and everyone here and kicking off Boston 2030 in terms of the location of implementing the Imagine Boston 2030 plan is energizing and just incredible, because Uphams Corner deserves it, right? But our mayor knows that because he's a Dorchester guy. And he knows the importance of this community. As we sat there, he talked about how he remembers shopping down the street with his mom on Dudley Street, right? And remember coming to Uphams Corner. So as I look out into this incredible community, I thank Juan and DSNI and DNI. So I grew up on Howard Avenue, right? So off of Dudley Street, so still part of Uphams Corner. My parents are still up there. I see incredible leaders. You're going to hear from Bob Haas shortly that I'm going to introduce, who's been doing tremendous work in our community in Uphams Corner. You know, I want to thank Uphams Corner Main Streets for their vision and their hard work, and Val and the work that they're doing. That's right. Give it up for Main Street. We see Father Curry of Blessed Mother Teresa. Thank you for being here. Representative Evandro Cavallo, you know, the rep in this area where we work together all the time. I see Azara Mendez, a leader in our community. I see, you know, Miss Eileen Kenner. Come on, Eileen, give it up. All right? I mean, has been in it for a long time. Folks that I've been able to watch and been inspired by. And as we talk about the vision, and as we talk about everyone's input in this incredible plan, we know the development that happens and strategies that go into place comes from you as residents. We know that. And I want to recognize someone that right there on Dudley Street, right off of Dudley Street on Non-Quit Street, you know, Ruth and the Non-Quit Civic Association, where they have the Dorchester Dragon. Give it up for Ruth, because I remember the work that this community did. And they have a Dorchester Dragon, so you need to go check it out on Dudley Street, okay? And the person who designed the dragon is Nancy Schoen, who did Make Way for Ducklings, right, on the Boston Common. It is the same person who developed that dragon for us. So thank you, Ruth, for your work over all the years. And so this is an incredible time. This is a rich neighborhood, an incredible community. Dorchester is amazing. All of the city is amazing. But as a Dorchester kid, I can just say that Uphams Corner is in the middle of it all. From Meeting House Hill, right up the street where you have the first school, public school in the country, the Mather School. From the North Burying Ground, right here on Uphams Corner on Columbia Road, which is the second oldest burial ground in the country and the resting place of the Mathers. To down to Dudley Street and the DSNI Triangle. You know, we're all connected to Jones Hill, Meeting House Hill. You know, all of us are connected. I want to recognize another leader, a former state rep, who laid the groundwork 5 years ago and did a lot of work, and we grew up down the street from each other. And that's former Representative Carlos Henriquez is here with us. Thank you for your work over the years. And so we know this is a community that is filled with richness. And as the mayor said, our city is filled with diversity. The mayor being first-generation American, his parents from Ireland. Me being first-generation American, my parents from Haiti. We are a community, a city that is interwoven together, intricately, bringing communities from all culture, individuals from all backgrounds, to understand that this is one Boston, and that we care about issues that impact our families. Doesn't matter if you're white, black, Latino, Asian, you know, we all care about economic opportunity, and our mayor gets that. We all care about creating housing that's affordable for our families and making sure people can grow and live and thrive in our great community, and the mayor gets that. But we also know the importance of education and the importance of working as a community, working with our incredible police officers that are here, working with our community organizations to make sure that when our families are going through tough times, that when our children are going through tough times, that we're going to be there to give support and encouragement and to make sure the resources are there protecting our families so they can continue to thrive and grow in our great city. And that's what Mayor Walsh has done. So I thank you all for being here today and for celebrating Boston Imagine 2030, but for celebrating Uphams Corner, because this is where it's at and this is where it's beginning and this is where you're going to take it throughout the city of Boston. So thank you all and God bless. And now, I mentioned him briefly, but, you know, Bob Haas needs no introduction, okay? If you've been in this neighborhood for a while, right? If you grew up in this neighborhood, you know the work of Bob Haas in DSNI, in DNI, in Uphams Corner, in working with businesses and our small businesses, which is important to our economy. You know, Bob Haas has been there knocking on doors when businesses didn't want to come up here. When banks were walking away from us, Bob Haas was here. When the Strand Theater was having issues in terms of people wanting to come into the Strand, Bob Haas was there and said, we need to open this up for our neighborhood and our children and our families. So give it up, everyone, for Bob Haas.
Isn't this a great party, everybody? Isn't this, you know, the most remarkable thing? And let me tell you why it's remarkable as I see it. If I had decided that I wanted to assemble all the people from all the parts of my life that went into bringing this neighborhood up to where it is today, I wouldn't have been able to get you all together like this party does. And that really, you know, we have to thank our mayor, Marty Walsh, who grew up in Dorchester, for doing that. But there's more to it when you think about it. You know, here I am, I'm old, right? I've been around this neighborhood that's coming on to 50 years now, but I wasn't born here, I didn't grow up in Boston. I just watched all the things that happened here. And what I can tell you, if you're younger, is that this was a neighborhood in which when you said, let's try this, or let's do that, you would get an answer, oh, that's impossible. We got, that's impossible so many times that we were like, you know, I mean, you had to be determined to want to do anything. But what worked, and what I have been privileged to be part of, was organizing up from the ground and teamwork. And I think that's really what this neighborhood is really an example of. We're like the gold standard for organizing up from the ground and teamwork. And so everybody you're out here, you're part of a team. You're part of an amazing team that has resulted in this celebration being in Uphams Corner, the place where they said everything was impossible. And so I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause. Please. And I want you all to view this as the beginning of teamwork, where every one of you really just look into your heart and think, how am I part of this teamwork going forward? How am I expressing my voice? How am I making it possible for others who work with me to make the difference against things where somebody might say, oh, that's impossible. They're not impossible. And that's why we're looking at this Bank of America building today, where 3 years ago, Uphams Corner Main Street said when the bank left, we're not going to just turn our backs and look away while something happens there and then wake up one day and say, oh, hi, look what they did. We decided we would have a role, we would have a hand, and we brought the whole community together around that, and our elected officials supported us, and here we are doing what some people would have said was impossible. So once again, thank you for coming. Thank you for all of our guests on the stage here, and for the many behind the scenes who have done so much to make this a very, very joyous event. Thank you.
We're almost done now. I want to thank Bob. I want to thank Bob for his years of commitment in this neighborhood. He's been involved in this community for 40 years, as far as I can remember. He's been part of this neighborhood. I want to thank Senator Forey, who spoke passionately about the community and what's happened here. And she brought up a point when she talked about Representative Enriquez. 5 years ago when he got elected to the House, he came in, we started talking. And his whole idea was about creating opportunities, creating housing, making sure people had a chance. And part of this vision is what he started many years before that. And before him, Marie St. Fleur. And before Marie St. Fleur, it was Charlotte Golarici and now Avandro. So we have some great representation in that seat. I want to thank you. We're in Uphams Corner today because of the model of how we can invest in our neighborhood. We're going to be talking about investing in Sullivan Square in Charlestown, Reedville and High Park, East Boston Waterfront, 4 Point Channel. All of these different neighborhoods that we're talking about today are areas that we're looking at and how do we grow our city, how do we make sure our city stays affordable, how do we make sure our city stays a place that people want to live. Citywide, we are thinking about how to ensure Bostonians have stable housing, support our neighborhoods with transit and green space, making sure that we don't have a bus run up Dudley Street or Columbia Road once every hour. We want to make sure it becomes a hub transit in our neighborhoods. We want to make sure our communities are walkable and healthy and bikeable. So when people want to bike, they take their bikes around the city. They're safe spaces to be. We want to support our small businesses. We have some small businesses on the other side of this fence right now. Help the small businesses. We want to ensure our waterfront is resilient and accessible for all. This plan is about building equity and access to opportunity. That's what our plan covers, a large range of area, from increasing quality of life to more jobs and opportunities. That's the only way we can meet our challenges, by looking at them together through an equity lens. And this plan has been built by people. This plan is not my plan. This is our plan. In 2 days, we're going to release our city's resiliency strategy. It will guide our work in connecting people to opportunities. A big focus of our Imagine Boston 2030 plan is on one great connector in our city, the Fairmont Corridor. It runs through Roxbury. It runs through Dorchester, Mattapan, and High Park. Residents want and deserve more investment in this line. One Rosendale, we can clap for this. One Rosendale resident told us they'd like to see housing density close to public transit and near walkable main streets. They want their neighborhood to be outside their front door. Mattapan told us they'd like to bring jobs closer to where people live and encourage a healthier lifestyle with more people biking and walking to work. That's exactly the future that we see for this area. The Fairmont Corridor represents the coordinated investments that we are making in education, in housing, in jobs, neighborhood vibrancy. In other words, building a network of opportunity. But we can't do any of this work alone. Boston needed a vision for our residents to set the course and identify key initiatives. Now the city needs partnerships to make them real. I want to take a moment to recognize the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative. We wouldn't be here today without the dedicated community partners like them. We need state support as well to move forward. Investments in the Fairmont line of the MBTA will help people get to jobs in and out of Boston. That's not only great for the Boston economy, but it will benefit the entire Commonwealth. That's the power of public transportation. We believe in the power of this plan that will change the city for the better. So we need our state partners to sit down with us to talk about making sure that we do have a good, strong 21st century transit system. That's what the people of Boston deserve. That's what the people of Boston want. That's what the people of Massachusetts need because of the amount of jobs that are in our city. So we want to be able to make sure, work with our state's representatives and state senators, work with the governor, work with the team, and when we have to put pressure, we're going to put pressure so we can move forward. Since we launched Imagine Boston 2030, we never stopped listening and putting ideas into action. This is a living document. It will evolve as our city evolves. This document will not go on the shelf tonight and sit there for the next 50 years and somebody can open it 50 years from now and say, oh, this happened, this didn't happen, that might have happened, that should have happened. That's not what we're all about. So our work is far from being done. Today is the launch of Imagine Boston 2030, but it's just the beginning. We've aligned Imagine Boston 2030 with our city capital plan so we can continue to implement on our projects. We're sharing metrics on key issues so we can see how we're tracking over time. I'm asking everyone to visit imagine.boston.gov, share your ideas with us, help us continue to shape this plan. We look forward to building Boston's future with you, and enjoy the day, and thank you all, everyone, for being here with us today. You going next door? I want to go check out the thing.
All right, everyone, the party does not stop. So while we're at it, let's try and get some refreshments. It's not Thursday, but it is Tuesday, so let's make it go up on a Tuesday. We've got water just on this end. We've got the beer garden in the back. I know some of you probably don't know there is a beer